Awesome. So again, welcome everybody. My name is Aga Tamena, and I serve as one of the co-chairs of Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council. I'd like to start by noting that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes section 13D-021 due to the declared local health pandemic. We last month piloted a new way for community members to participate in our virtual meetings. Rather than only calling in by telephone, community members are joining us here today on Teams. So there might be more people in your video screen. So just a reminder to keep yourself muted at times that you're not speaking and to keep the meeting moving along and on schedule. Please wait your turn to speak and hold questions until the end of each agenda item. There is a chat function, but reminder that folks who are calling in on the phone can't see what's happening in the chat. So we will verbalize everything that you type in there, but there are limitations to public access. And so we just want to encourage people when they can, and if the information is pertinent, to share verbally rather than relying on the chat. So with that, I'll call this meeting to order and ask Tamara to call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum. Council members, when Tamara calls your name, please say present and also introduce yourself briefly with your organization, affiliation, and any other identifiers you want to share. We'd also like to try something new tonight. Oh, it's not new anymore. It was new last month. But as you introduce yourself, if you could just share one word to describe how you're feeling today, how you're entering this space. And for any community members on the call, we'll provide an opportunity for you to introduce yourself if you haven't already after we complete the roll call.
Okay. Swado Abdi. Mel Anderson. Beth Dooley. Andrea Egger. Nolan Green.
Present, and I represent Twin Cities Co-op Partners. And my word, I guess, exhausted.
I hope you get some rest and relaxation. Becca Gross.
Present. I'm the Community Garden Coordinator for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. I'm going to go with sweaty.
All right, Kim Havey.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Havey. I'm the Director of Sustainability at the City of Minneapolis. I use pronouns he, him, his, and kind of going with Rebecca that I'm feeling sticky.
Andrea Inouye.
Hi, Andrea Inouye. I'm with the Office of Mayor Jacob Fry, and I am feeling breezy because I have a fan directly on me.
Nice. Marcus Carr.
Present. I'm Marcus Carr. I'm the Director of Youth Farm in Minneapolis, and my word would be pool, because I've been farming since 8 o'clock this morning in Carver County, and I'm about to jump in my swimming pool.
All right. Amy Maz.
Present. I work with Hennepin County Environment and Energy. I use she, her pronouns, and I am overheated.
Yikes. All right. Get some water. Emily Mingy. Rahim Mohammed. Nolan.
I think I heard my name.
Yes.
Oh, hi, Devon Nolan. I am with Appetite for Change. I am the market manager for the West Broadway Farmers Market here. And what are we saying? A word about how we're feeling today? Determined. Thank you.
Thank you. Love that. Kristen Klingler.
Hi,
Sorry.
everyone. That's okay. Hi, everyone. This is Kristen Klingler from the Health Department, and I'm representing the Healthy Living team. And my word is hungry after listening to all of the ice cream talk.
Thanks. Teresa Opheim.
Hi, I'm present, and I'm the director of a project called Climate Land Leaders. And I hate to tell you this, but I'm cold. I'm on Lake Superior, and there's a strong wind coming from the northeast.
That doesn't sound so bad. Thanks. Tasha Powell. Aiden Reed.
Hi, everybody. My name is Aiden. I am a graduate researcher at the University of Minnesota in the Center for Integrated Natural Resource and Agriculture Management. Today, I'm feeling hopeful. Just excited to be working on what we're working on, and also summer is fantastic. Farmers markets are in full swing. It's a good time of year.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Jeremy Schrader.
Okay, everybody. I'm Jeremy Schrader. I'm a city council member from Minneapolis and food council member. I use he, him pronouns. I think my word is introspective.
Can all take a moment to think about that. Thank you. Tiffany Lachey. Jason Walker. Mai Yang. Co-chair Sega Tamina.
Present. Hey, everybody. I work with Pillsbury United Communities, and I use she, her pronouns. My favorite color is purple. My word is receive. I'm in a posture to receive.
Thank you. Helen, I am seeing people's names and expecting them to be in my list and missing a second person here. Apologies, Helen.
No worries. Thanks, Tamara. Hey, everyone. Helen Schnoes with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. I use she, her pronouns. I was going to just say sweaty, but after hearing everyone else's words, I'm feeling inspired. So I'm looking forward to our time together tonight.
Thank you. And our co-chair, Kate Siebold.
Hi, everyone. Present Kate Siebold. I am the Farm School Coordinator for Minneapolis Public Schools and co-chair of the Food Council. And my word is going to be ready. I'm ready for this meeting. I'm excited. And I'm ready for ice cream afterwards, because our opening has decided for me that I'm going to go get ice cream later.
Nice. Thank you, Kate, and everybody for showing up. I am grateful for your presence, Tamara, Food Policy Coordinator. We have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you for taking roll, Tamara. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We want to create some space for community members who've called in to unmute yourselves and briefly introduce yourselves. Also with your name, your organization or affiliation, if you do have one, and any other identifiers that you would want to share. So for community members on the call, feel free to unmute yourself and introduce.
This is Sarun Iem. I'm Program Officer at Greater Twin Cities United Way. She, her pronoun, and word I'm coming with is scattered. I have the kids outside on the pool and I want to grab the water gun that they're playing with too. So I'm, yeah.
Yeah, I would be of divided heart if that were my situation right now. So thank you for being here. It means that much more. Are there other community members on the call? For those that introduced yourselves early on, would you mind introducing yourselves again, just as others have joined.
Sure. This is Rebecca Orman. I'm a community. Oh, I can have a face for a minute. Am I on? Hi. Honestly, it's been like a decade that I've been wanting to attend one of these meetings. So I'm very enthusiastic and excited to be here and hear what you guys are doing. Yeah.
I love that. A decade later, it's never too late.
I believe there may be a couple city staff as well who could introduce themselves.
Sure. That's probably my cue. I'm Patty Bowler with the Health Department, and then the Director of Policy and Healthy Communities. And my word is excited because I see that it's raining and I maybe hear some thunder, and my poor little plants so need the rain, and I hope it cools things off.
Where are you?
Hello, this is Sam Jensen, also from the health department, here taking notes. And my word is also cold, but not because I'm somewhere cold, because my AC is a little overeager.
Thank you for introducing yourselves. I feel like I got a full weather climate report. So thank you for being present from all of the different locations you're calling in from, for joining us and making time for tonight's meeting. With that, we'll proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's Legislative Information Management System, or LIMS, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. And Tamara, is it okay if we combine the adoption of the agenda and acceptance of minutes? Awesome. So items 2 and 3 on the agenda, our first items of business, are the adoption of our agenda for tonight's meeting, followed by the acceptance of minutes from our last May 12th, 2021 meeting. We tried this last month. It seemed to work. We're going to combine these two items if we receive a proper motion. May I have a motion from a Food Council member to approve the agenda and accept the May 12th minutes?
So moved, Schrader.
I second.
Beautiful. We have a proper motion before us. Is there any discussion before Tamara takes roll? Awesome. With that, I'll ask you, Tamara, to take the roll on the motion. And when you hear your name, please respond with yay or nay to indicate your position.
Okay. Swado Abdi, Mel Anderson, Beth Dooley, Andrea Eger, Nolan Green,
Yay.
Becca Gross,
Yay.
Havy,
Yay.
Andrea Inoue,
It looks like I lost reception. Did you hear my yay?
did not. I hear it now. Okay, thank you. Marcus Carr,
Yay.
Kristen Klingler,
Yay.
Mimaz,
Yay.
Emily Mingy, Ibrahim Mohammed, Devon Nolan,
Yay.
Teresa Opheim,
Yay.
Tasha Powell, Aiden Reed,
Yes.
Rose,
It was that, I mean, I only heard a little bit, but if it was Helen Schnoes, then yay.
It was. I'm sorry if I'm cutting out. Councilmember Jeremy Schrader,
Yay.
Tiffany Lachey, Jason Walker, Mai Yang, Co-Chair Segatamina,
Yay.
Co-Chair Kate Siebold.
Yay.
The motion to approve the agenda and the minutes does pass with 14 votes in favor.
Thank you. And one less roll call.
Mhm.
Many months we've been online and in person. So we're moving on to our next agenda item, which is the largest agenda item for today. For those of you who were able to look at the agenda before hopping on, we're going to be discussing the Minneapolis Parks and Rec Parks for All plan. And a task force of food council members put some tender love and care into reviewing the plan and have provided some overview comments and guiding questions for our conversation today. So just a big thanks to Becca and Helen, I think maybe Devon to some extent as well, in supporting the thinking and the presentation and facilitation for tonight. I will kick it over to Becca to get us started with an overview and background of the plan.
Hey, everybody. Sorry, I'm hiding behind my computer here. I really can't get my camera to work. But I was hoping that we could start out by watching just like a quick 3-minute video by our youth design team. If I put the link in the chat to the video, could one of you share screen and pull it up due to my technology problems? Thank you.
Just a moment while I hit share here.
Thanks, Tamara.
I've got video and no sound.
In Teams, there's a way when you share your screen that there's like a little toggle at the top that says include computer sound. If someone wants to try again.
All right, one moment.
Becca, as we get that video pulled up.
Parks for All by the Youth Design Team. We live in a busy city with a lot of buildings, traffic, and fast-paced living. Our parks offer the opportunity to be in nature, play sports, and enjoy programs with our families and friends in almost every neighborhood.
These beautiful natural spaces mean so much to our communities, and it's up to us to make sure that they are open and welcoming places that serve us all.
The Minneapolis parks are located on traditional, ancestral, and contemporary Dakota land. They are the original stewards of the land we walk on, play on, and enjoy. They were removed from the land through violence and have fought since then to be acknowledged and respected. We can listen, learn, and act to honor them and their land now and in the future.
Part of making sure our parks are parks for all is having ways to ask our communities what they envision and need now and into the future. Parks for All is MPRB's comprehensive planning process that is working to envision the priorities and goals for our park system and staff for the next decade.
Talking to the community, we are hearing what people want to see in their parks.
Innovation, geocaching program, recreation, concerns, recreational, more basketball swings, basketball, no trash, court in the lake. I wish my parks had more recycling. My park needs yoga outside.
Park policies and plans also help us build on what we learn from communities to guide the park board into the future. We see the process like the growth of a tree. Community engagement and MPRB plans and policies will create the foundation and feed the plan as it grows.
Each season, we're moving through different stages of the planning process.
There's so many ways to get your voice and opinions into the plan. We want you to join the conversation.
Invite a friend to attend community meetings.
There's always something for you to help us at the park board.
Come help us finish planning the comprehensive plan.
Sign up, get updated on what we're doing.
Share what you hope to see in the future. Help us make our parks parks for all. The youth design team would like to thank all the people who helped make this film possible.
Thanks for pulling that up, Tamara.
This unforgettable vacation.
The youth design team was part of a youth employment program that the youth worked at MPRB to help do engagement around the comprehensive plan. So they got to learn about community engagement and planning and policy work. It's pretty awesome. And they put together that kind of promotional video. So the current draft of the Parks for All plan that we're going to talk about tonight is actually that's the second draft of the plan, and it was released in April of this year. It's open for public comment through July 18th. So I'd encourage everyone kind of separate from Food Council too, to just take some time to read through the plan and share comments on the public comment page, which is on the Park Board's website. I'll share that website in the chat momentarily. The purpose of the Parks for All comprehensive plan is to provide guidance for policy, programs, budgets, and park improvements. It's also used to communicate MPRB's values. It really focuses on the park system as a whole, not on individual parks, but it is complemented by the master plans, which really focus more on individual park planning and development. It's structured so that each element of the plan supports the next. It starts by outlining the organization's mission and vision for the future. It also then proceeds to outline MPRB's values that include equity, sustainability, connectedness, independence, accountability, and innovation. So after the values, it goes into specific goals that will be used to guide development, operations, and maintenance over the course of the next decade. And each goal has strategies that provide concrete actions to achieve those goals. And lastly, there are indicators and metrics provided for each goal to help track progress, provide transparency and accountability. Helen is going to go into some of those goals in a little more detail, but just to kind of wrap up the sort of quick background on it, I really enjoyed reading the vision portion of it, so I'm just going to take a minute to read it to you. It brought me a lot of joy, and I think it's a nice thing to hear. So in 2030, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation System embodies equitable park and recreation access balanced with ecological health. It is a premier destination that welcomes and captivates people that live, play, work, study in, and visit Minneapolis. Natural, cultural, artistic, historical, athletic, and recreational activities cultivate outstanding experiences that break down barriers to health, enjoyment, fun, and learning for all people. The park system is equitable, accessible, sustainable, cared for, beautiful, and safe. It meets the needs of individuals, families, and communities across culture, race, ethnicity, language, ability, geography, generation, and gender. Natural areas in the system balance thriving habitat and thoughtful, equitable park and recreation access. Through storytelling and experience, MPRB fosters pride in park users and staff and cultivates a new generation of proud stewards and supporters of an extraordinary park and recreation system. So I'm going to turn it over to Helen, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the Food Council related review that we did of the plan. Thanks.
Thanks, Becca. That was really great. Yeah, thanks for reading the vision. I'll say I also was really interested. As part of developing the plan, they identified a variety of futures, like what they think the city will be becoming, that they're planning for. So a more diverse city, a denser city, an older population, sustained and increased wealth gap, aging infrastructure, a wetter city, fewer wild plants and animals, more digitally connected tech-reliant population, more frequent health crises, and growing health disparities. So just that's an interesting context of where they're seeing trends going that we need to be proactively planning for. For the comments that we developed, it happened through individual review and then conversation and then a meeting with the executive team. Tamara, would it be helpful to like share the letter, or everyone has it and is looking at it themselves? Or
I think for you to walk through the specific, bullet points from the letter, which will be, refined before sent, and then the table certainly, I think, as an overview for folks.
Okay, so just if folks want to like look to your agenda and the email packet, I'm going to go over the drafted letter that Tamara prepared. There are 3 kind of high-level recommendations that we developed. Increase programming spaces and funding to support healthy food access and nutrition security, community gardening, food entrepreneurship, and food skill building. The second recommendation is to create and implement policies that support greater equity in the park's food-related activities. And we include some specific examples about that. And then partner with Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council and related community organizations to advance the plan and track progress. Becca mentioned that in addition to having the strategies to advance the goals, there's also metrics and indicators included in the later pages of the plan to track progress. And perhaps there's some alignment there with what we're doing to create the food action plan. It's hard to get into these comments without getting a little in the weeds. And so the approach that we took for where we thought there was more detailed areas of opportunity for comment is we created a table that breaks down each goal area or other sub point of the plan, gives areas of appreciation where we just want to say, this is good. We like the direction this is going. The next column in that table is questions, comments, concerns, just kind of what does this mean? Can you add more detail? Just general comments, but not a specific recommendation. And then the final column there is additions and suggestions where we're more specific of like, on this page in this strategy, please add community gardens more explicitly. Please, directly address how you're structuring this part of the plan. And so we're going to break into small groups, and to not bore you, you could, lead your small group conversation by just going goal by goal, like row by row through that table, and having the full plan. A lot of strategies are explicitly named where we're either saying they're great or saying they could be better. And you could have someone maybe who has the plan up and can explain what those are, but that's the approach we took for the comments we're suggesting Homegrown brings back to the park board of the 3 high-level primary recommendations, and then some more specific appreciation, questions, and explicit suggestions.
That's an awesome overview, Helen. Marcus, I see you're unmuted. Is there something you wanted to add right away?
Oh no, I'm just listening, and I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. You're good. You're moving and grooving. So I also just want to recognize that Helen and Becca put a lot of work into reading the plan, engaging with the plan, to come away with recommendations that are pretty expansive, and then those specific examples. So just want to honor that work again. And also recognize that we haven't all done that. And that's kind of the purpose of these breakout conversations now, is for us to process everything that's on this 2-pager, 2 or 3-pager. And yeah, to the extent that we can, come away with some important questions and conversations with one another in smaller groups. What we'll ask, Tamara is hard at work getting those breakout groups set up, is that among yourselves, somebody is delegated as a note taker, just to capture some of the conversations or questions or challenges or excitement that you're experiencing as you review the draft Food Council recommendations. Yeah, and then if we could also delegate among ourselves in your breakout group a timekeeper. We're going to keep this conversation to 15 minutes. We'll probably be breaking out in the next 1 or 2 minutes. So we'll plan to come back here at 6:30. So if the timekeep can just move your conversation along, and to the extent that people are willing and able, welcome everybody to share their thoughts and feedback. So yes, breakout groups, a note taker, a timekeeper among you. Some of you might have already engaged with the Parks for All plan to some extent and have takeaways or feedback of your own. Some of you might have, submitted public comment on your own, separate from this space. So all of that is also welcome here. You're not at all bound to the recommendations that Becca and Helen, through a lot of conversations, put to paper. So with that, I think we all know what we're doing with breakout groups. Lots of content to marinate through.
I did drop a link in the chat to the agenda and the those set of draft recommendations in the table that Helen was referencing. In case anybody didn't have that handy, you could grab the link from the chat. So I will hit the start rooms button in just a moment here, and we will pull you back together, as Sega said, after we've had that time to process. So grab a link now if you need it. Otherwise, I will start our rooms. There are 4 rooms that people have been assigned to. So if you can note your room number, that will be good too.
A note taker and a timekeeper among yourselves would be awesome.
Hi there, Kevin Ellis. I see you've just joined the meeting. We currently have breakout rooms that are in process, but they're just going to last about another minute. So we'll be bringing the participants back momentarily.
Great, thanks. I've had technical difficulties all afternoon, so that's why I'm late. Thank you.
Lens that I'm looking through is as a, you know, very small farm in Longfellow. I'm trying to start a farm business, and I was looking for land, but I'm doing it instead from our very small Minneapolis plot. But so my interest is, you know, is there an effort to foster getting more very small urban farms, finding them places to farm?
Awesome. Dan, you then pop back into the larger community room. So no, I mean, you shared your perspective with everybody, which is just what we're going to transition into. So not to interrupt your train of thought, but since we have everybody here, I just want to take a second to welcome everybody back. I hope you had good conversations. If you shared your favorite parks or your gut reactions to the recommendations shared, or just your thoughts around an engagement and public entities planning process, we welcome it all. And yes, with that, I'll ask whoever was designated as your note taker. Hopefully, they've been able to document in whatever way makes sense to them the knowledge that you exchanged in your breakout. So folks would unmute themselves and just report back from your breakout group. Generally, what folks appreciated about the plan, what concerns or questions they had, and where they might want to add or revise. And if you're not the designated note taker and you still feel compelled to share, please also feel free to do so.
I can chime in first, and those of you who are in my group, feel free to add anything that I missed. But our group generally, really appreciated the direction of the plan, as well as the really incredible work that Rebecca and Helen did to kind of prepare this table for comments and recommendations. Our conversation, we were really interested in, as we recommend, like information on tracking of the community garden plots, and we're wondering about what demand for those garden plots looks like compared to how many there are. And Rebecca, feel free to answer that after this if you have a quick answer for that. But so we really wanted that to be incorporated in our suggestions for tracking that demand, as well as what barriers there might be for people to participate in the community garden plot program, or collecting information on why there may be more demand in some parks than others, and how things could be improved. And there was also interest in, for goal 6, ecological connections, strengthening some language around incorporating pollinator habitat and perennial plants into garden spaces. And Teresa kind of shared the example of, in her neighborhood, there's a lot of, private plots that have great pollinator habitat and, perennial plants, and then the park is just total turf grass. And so, how do we kind of build out those ecological areas using parkland? And then we also talked about strengthening the language around access to healthy food options. And Kristen shared about the healthy food policy that's in place, and interest in finding out how it's being enforced or if it's been updated at all. And if they're also, as part of that, could we include language to also request access to tap water to be included in that? So as we think about access to healthy food, also making sure that there's tap water, like hydration stations at parks for community members to be using. And then finally, for goal 4, in connection with strategy 6, there was a recommendation to strengthen the language for our suggestion to really emphasize encouraging the parks to, as they strengthen, and determine roles and partnerships, to really emphasize our recommendation for working with local organizations that are already leading food and garden programming in our community and bring them into work happening in the parks. So those were our big areas.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate, and thanks to everybody in your breakout. Thank you for naming their contributions too. Is there another breakout group that wants to share or report back on their conversation?
I'll report out from my group. I volunteered to be the note taker since I had done the deep dive too. The echoing Kate's group, we talked about how just knowing the number of plots of community gardens in the program isn't sufficient, and that analyzing the geographic locations of gardens is really important, because it doesn't matter if we have a lot of gardens if they're not where gardens are needed and accessible. And so talked about the green zones in the city and just where is there need for food security and how is garden planning aligned with that? Should there be an overall goal beyond just counting? We also talked just about how important it'll be to really strengthen and have a tighter connection between the Minneapolis lot program and the parks gardening as we think about development pressures on the city's land and the protection opportunities of parkland and how to protect lots for gardening. We didn't get to a specific recommendation beyond just the need for strong coordination between those programs. Similarly, we talked about healthy food policies among food options in the parks, and while there may be a policy in place, how is the park board kept accountable? And so I think that could be added somewhere in the comments, possibly in goal 5. And then we were ending just talking about just agreeing about how the parks and how they create spaces for food entrepreneurship is important for supporting entrepreneurship and business development in our city overall in the food space. So those are the high level notes I got from our conversation, but others in my group are welcome to jump in or get in the chat if I'm missing something you find important for this dialogue.
Hi, this is Kim. Helen did a great job in summarizing it, and thank you also, Helen and Becca, for the really digging into the details and the weeds. I think this is a really great summary of the relationship between the food and systems and parks. I wanted to sort of emphasize that connection and sort of just re-emphasize. I think it would be really terrific to to directly connect, and I know it's mentioned here, directly connect with metrics and goal of the food action plan. I know it's sort of mentioned in here, but it'd be great. So if there was a way to assess the food action plan to see whether there's some overlapping goals, because it'd be, then your work, you got literally got the goals tied directly together to see whether that is. And I know with the community gardens, that's kind of like how it is. Just seems like there's a lot of interesting metrics in here. If we can tie them with the food action plan, be really, I think, synergistic for them coming together about the same time.
Thanks for that addition, Kim. Is there are there one or two more breakout groups who haven't reported out yet?
I can add just a couple of things from our group. First off, I think folks generally liked the overall recommendations, especially the third one, which you kind of touched on too, Kim, about partnering with Food Council and other organizations to advance the plan and track progress. And then there was a suggestion that, especially in our recommendations, that we focus more explicitly on racial equity throughout each goal and addition and suggestion. If anyone from my group wants to chime in more, definitely welcome.
Thanks, Becca. I think I may have been in the final breakout group. Is
I
that
think
right?
it's just us, yeah.
Okay. Did you want to share, Sam? That'd be awesome.
I can share if you have anything to add, but we were pretty focused on the community garden thing, and I think everybody covered it really well about the connection between the park board and the city's garden programs, and just what does that mean in terms of food security for our city, and how are we looking at that overall. Feel free to add.
Yes, I think we also just reflected on the general overwhelm of a 90-something page plan, and even the very abbreviated recommendations and review, so much work into condensing the takeaways for us, and it still was so much content to process. So I just want to lift that up because we spent a while just looking at each other like, whoa, what's happening here? And yeah, so I think we're learning a lot from the two of you about what a deep dive could look like and what the challenge is in surfacing the places where we would even want to comment as a food council, but then imagine for the public at large. So just want to lift that up. And then we got to the good part of our conversation when we hop back into this room. So I'll just pause there. Awesome. Thank you for everybody for reporting out from your breakout groups. I see Teresa's comment in the chat. Are garden leases 1 year only? I think this is in reference to the Minneapolis Parks garden leases.
Yes, in the community garden policy that was passed in 2018, it specifically requires people to reapply for the plot that they used every year for a few reasons. One is it's intended to give new folks access to the program, whether or not they were the first folks to have access to the information about it. I think, yeah, there's pluses and minuses to it, which I won't get into too much, but yeah, you do need to reapply each year.
Yeah, it's really an interesting question. This is Teresa, because to build soil health on those plots, someone might spend a whole lot of time doing that and then lose the access to that, and there are food security implications as well. to not letting people continue to build soil and rotate crops on a plot.
I will just say that part of the application process is focused on equity, and that it prioritizes folks, who might be experiencing food insecurity and who don't have access to land. So if a person kind of falls into either of those two boats, I would say generally they wouldn't lose access to their plot.
Becca, can you clarify, since I think the question was about leases, and as you said, is that technically called a lease at the park board, or what do you call the agreement that you have with the gardeners?
Yeah, it's not really a lease. So folks apply to use a space for their own individual purposes. It's an application, and then they agree to care for the space for the season. There's no fees or anything. They don't need to have like insurance, because it's a small plot to grow food for themselves and their family.
Thank you for that clarification, because we do call it a lease, and it is actually a lease at the city through the garden lease program, which allows access to the entire lot being leased for a given group, but does require insurance and a very bureaucratic contractual process, which usually is done every year. And kind of on the flip side of your process, we do have folks that are generally grandfathered into a renewal unless they choose not to renew, or something kind of goes wrong. They generally are given kind of more of an indefinite access to a particular parcel. And so on the side of building the soil, it works really well, but there's not really access to that lot for others, unless it's an open community garden, which in many cases it is. And so really, I think that's a distinction that's maybe not clear between the park and the city programs.
Awesome. I see in the chat a question on including specifically food preservation or foraging, if that showed up in the recommendations or in the plan overall.
I don't think there's anything in the plan specifically about foraging. The park board did change its ordinances around the same time as the community garden program started, to allow people to harvest fruit and nuts in the parks. In the majority of the parks, there's a few places where it's still not allowed because they're formal gardens, but it's something is brought up in the urban agriculture activity plan and via policy already. I'm not sure about food preservation. I don't remember anything in the comp plan about that. I do know that some recreation centers have hosted kind of community ed classes and stuff about food preservation in community and commercial kitchens. So.
I think that would be a helpful clarification. Years ago, the park board had provided a list of all the park sites that had kitchens available that could be used by the public for preservation or for cooking. And I don't know if that same group of kitchens is still available right now, or if that's something that they would be actively promoting as available, but I think it's good to note.
I see, so we're transitioning. We've reported out as our breakout groups, we're transitioning to a time of open discussion. So if you have comments that you wanted to share that may not have been shared from your breakout groups report back, or just something that's come up for you in the past couple of minutes, we'll give the next 10 minutes or so for discussion if we need it. One question that did come up for me, just as one of the groups raised, like how equity is defined and envisioned to be realized by this plan. And I wanted to understand specifically, I remember seeing just in my scan of the plan, like an acknowledgement of Native land and Indigenous people. And I'm thinking to the youth-led video design team, can't remember who comprises that group, but the youth voices that you open with in that video, and their invitation for, you know, a reckoning and like that framing in their work. And I know they've been doing some engagement around the planet, sounds like. So I'm just curious, like it doesn't show up as a goal or as a specific strategy, at least in the notes. And part of my working definition of equity or justice is centering communities most and or uniquely impacted by racial violence specifically. So I'm just like, I don't know if that's come up. I know Parks loves like land acknowledgements, but what does it mean to acknowledge land and labor and violence, and then also have specific actions to reconcile that, and if that shows up?
Hi, Tasega, this is Sabrina.
Well, you might be echoing.
I have to log out. Is that better?
Oh yeah, it got a lot better.
Okay, good. I am glad you brought that point up too, because I was thinking that I would like to see, I don't know where it belongs in here, is this education opportunity to learn more about Native ways, since this is, you know, origin Dakota, Lakota land. What are the education opportunities to learn about how Native do pollinating, how Native do cultivating, to expand, you know, skill sets and knowledge as well. And I think there is opportunity to bring in, you know, newly immigrants and refugees who do gardening and farming as well, to incorporate what they brought from their native land to adapt, you know, to Minnesota land, and how do they show up in gardening and farming? How do we incorporate those learning opportunities for our group and for Minneapolis around that?
I heard incorporate learning opportunities, and recognizing that there's like vast Indigenous knowledge in the community that can be invested in and resourced through the parks. Thank you for that, Sarun. And I see in the chat from Teresa, yes, and learning about knowledge of the Dakota and other Native peoples who stewarded this amazing land for so long. Helen shared, Goal 1 has strategy 3 on page 32 to amplify Indigenous stories, histories, cultural practices, and connections to land through employment, partnerships, programming, interpretation, and community engagement. So there are some specific actions named there. Thank you for pulling that up, Helen, and thanks for your comment, Teresa. Awesome. Are there other thoughts for people? Okay. If they come up, please feel free to vocalize them or drop them into the chat. Feel free also to email any of your feedback to homegrown@minneapolismn.gov. If our note takers could also share their feedback via email to homegrown@minneapolismn.gov, that would be awesome. We've tried our best to capture everything that was shared here, but your notes would be supportive of making sure all the conversation goes into the next iteration of this draft. We wanted to give a little time to talk about a potential vote on the recommendations. I think I'll kick it back to Becca or Helen and or Tamara to speak to that, what the process might look like and where things stand right now.
I could begin just having not been in any of the breakout rooms, but just hearing through your verbal report backs, the wonderful level of detail that you all kind of thought about. And I feel like based on the substance of the potential modifications, we may want to bring this back for folks to look at the next meeting, as opposed to approving it now without everybody being able to see that modified version, which would amplify the things that were pointed out. But you know, Helen and Becca, you may have a better sense, being so much more intimately familiar with the details, any divergence in what we've heard, or if this has been mostly affirmation. Because we do, you know, the time frame of reporting back to the park board in our next food council meeting would work such that we could come back with some modified language for people and then, you know, approve a letter being sent then. But if we're good now and can make those modifications in the real time of our meeting, kind of in detail enough, then the food council could approve those modified recommendations and authorize the co-chairs to send a letter including that. But that would be both kind of a clarification needed that we have that substance accounted for and that people feel comfortable making that sort of a vote today versus having that updated version to look at for the next meeting and approve and then send the letter then. So process-wise, I think we thought maybe the letter could happen after today's meeting, but my sense right now is that we need to give it a little time to digest and to re-review. But please weigh in, Helen and Becca, on your sense as well.
It seemed to me like most of the modifications would come more in the table than on the kind of first 3 bullet points, which to me were the, I don't know, kind of meat and potatoes of the letter. And that adding like a couple of sections to the chart wouldn't necessarily change that, the first part.
That's helpful to know. I mean, I think that the chart would be what we would point people to, I understand, in the letter. And so making sure we're on the same page about what that's saying does seem important if people are going to sign off on that being the official recommendation.
I'd be curious if folks would be inspired to dig a little bit more after today to provide more direction on some of the issues that have been lifted up, or if the exec committee, I think I'm hearing what you're hearing, Tamara, that bringing a new draft back in July may be the best approach given the thoughtful dialogue. But I feel like we need more folks to come down the rabbit hole with us to get it there. Is just where I'm feeling right now. So curious about who maybe could help advance it, or maybe you have a sense of that based on what we've talked about.
Just before you respond, Tamara, I did want to lift up a few more comments in the chat. Helen shared looking through goals 1 and 5. It could be helpful for equity understanding or critique or amplification from the current draft. And then I do want to acknowledge that Kim has had their hand up for a while. So Kim, if you want to share what's on your mind.
I just wanted to ask, so clarification, the comments are due back in, or say August, was it?
July 18th.
July 18th.
Which is, I think, like 4 days after our next meeting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, partially it is like, you know, for me anyway, I wasn't at the last meeting and it feels like there's a lot to digest and it might be worth to sort of like rethink about it. And, you know, like just even talking about, just pieces that you might not have looked at, or whatever that might trigger some thoughts. So if we're not under a time deadline, I feel like I would agree just to let this think about it, and let's exchange some more ideas and finalize it for the next meeting. That'd be my recommendation.
Thanks, Kim. I see. Is it Kate?
Yeah, my thought is maybe to Kim's point. Oh, I'm seeing someone's willing to go down the rabbit hole. Teresa, yay. One thought or approach that we could take is maybe at our next exec meeting, which will fall between now and our next full meeting, we dedicate time in that executive meeting to go through the notes that we took today at today's meeting, and prior to maybe each review the plan in a bit more detail, especially around, I think, the equity and diversity comments that there were, and maybe the food access as well. And then between that exec meeting and our next meeting, we could get the table updated. Sega and I could flush out the final parts of the letter and then have a new table and complete letter to present to the council at the next meeting for them to vote on. Thoughts on that approach? And I'll say, Teresa could cut, and if there's other people who want to join for that work and going down the rabbit hole, you could either send your notes to us prior to our exec meeting, or you could join us for our executive committee meeting, which is always open to all the council members.
So we have different ideas about what it could look like, but I think the consensus for everybody is that we're gonna sit with this feedback a little bit longer, and bring it to our July meeting. So I'm hearing that consensus. I just want to speak it back to people, for those who aren't chiming in right now. And then I see Tamara, your hand is up if you had something you wanted to add.
Yes, thank you. I'm trying not to just break out in comments and use our process more. So yes, I guess I concur, and I'm happy to offer also that internally we can kind of assemble the information before the executive committee. So, or if the group would like to meet at all and take that on, I think whatever we can do to help the executive committee meeting be productive time. I know there's other items that also may be complementary if we're able to come to the Food Council meeting in July, ideally with some more updates on the Garden Lease program. It may be complementary to have these conversations as well, as we're thinking about further integrating that collaboration with the park board and the city on the Garden Lease program. And so, yeah, I guess I concur that kind of having Teresa's involvement in getting the group together is great, as well as whatever we can do to be helpful. We'll offer that, but great to hear that we will come back in July with some tightened up kind of recommendations that the group can sit with and germinate on.
Yeah, awesome. So with that, thanks everybody for your time, your energy, your brilliance into that conversation. Take that draft with you, and wherever you do your best thinking, sit with it for whatever time you can make for it. And we'll be following up with what the process looks like in July. So we'll be unfinished business for our next meeting. But I think we've gotten to enough consensus that we can move on to our next agenda item, which is some updates from the city.
These will be brief, which will allow time for updates and announcements from members and any kind of a early closure. But I think because we're still with all of the balls in the air working on kind of moving some process forward, but we do have some updates, as I mentioned, I'm hoping we can bring to that next July meeting on the garden lease program recommendations. We've been working in coordination with CPED and Public Works internally to try to identify what some recommendations can be for our discussion. And likewise, the wheels are slowly still turning in the right direction on the food action plan, topical deep dives, and community kind of engagement. And so both with Terrasoma coming back into the loop with helping on the deep dives, as well as with the University of Minnesota as a partner on the community outreach, kind of the funding side with Princeton. There will be more updates, but the bureaucratic mechanics are still kind of grinding forward. So not a lot to share right now, but definitely still moving in the right direction, and a lot of work happening with more news soon on the food security side, doing some outreach to our food shelves and other hunger relief partners, and some funding opportunities that will be in the works soon to try to help respond to our community's hunger relief network with some more resources. So stay tuned. Really great things in the works, but not quite ready to share in detail here. So I can, unless any other of my city colleagues who are on the line have more detail, they feel like we can share on any city news or opportunities, give more details. And Kate, I'm enjoying you have a participant in your background there. I love to have the other members here watching. Thank you for that. I can just hand over to the co-chairs back, and we could shift to other announcements.
Awesome.
Tamara, I got distracted for a minute, but did you talk about the ARP proposals that are out right now?
I obliquely referenced resources will be shared in more details. So anything you would like to share is great.
Sure. And I will look for the link and put it in the chat. So the mayor released the first round of proposals for the city's American Rescue Plan funds this last Friday, and it does include some additional funding for the food security work that Tamara and folks have been leading at the city through the pandemic, and to support some of that ongoing work there. And so I'll put that in the chat so you can look at some of those details. This is sort of the beginning of the process, and then it will go through the sort of city council approval process, similar to how the budget process works. It's sort of a pre-budget process for this portion of the funds. So we can provide some more information as those dates are finalized. And so we're hoping to get those proposals finalized and approved through council this summer, so that the funds can be out and doing work in community. And then I will also share, as the information evolves more, about what the engagement opportunities will be for the next round of funding. So this first proposal is for about $90 million, and we have a total of $270 million that we've gotten through that federal stimulus plan. So the next portion will be have a much more robust community engagement process, and talking about some additional ongoing needs and opportunities. So I'll make sure to share that through Tamara with the group, so that when there are opportunities to weigh in on how we're planning out the rest of those funds, we'll make sure you have an opportunity to weigh in.
And just clarifying here, that's the mayor's proposal to the federal government?
No, so we have received the funding at the city, and we have the sort of big picture general guidelines for what we're allowed to spend that federal money on. And then the process that we're doing it to approve it within our city processes, that we are mirroring the sort of budget process. So the mayor's made a proposal, and now it will go to city council for them to review and amend similarly to how the budget process works, only in a much truncated portion for this initial portion so that we can get those funds out the door quickly. So that process will be underway shortly. Council has those, is reviewing those as well right now. And then those, once those are through that formal service city approval process, then the departments that have their own, have the responsibility for those particular proposals will then be able to move forward with the implementation phase.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Are there announcements from food council members or community members on the line? I got your hand, Kate.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that for youth in Minneapolis, many of them are finishing up school this week, and there will be free, Minneapolis Public Schools will be providing free meal boxes all summer long. So many of you have heard me give these updates for in the past for the last year or so, but there will be, the weekly meal boxes will be continuing throughout the summer. There's 8 sites. Most of them are going to be open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. A few will have extended hours of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the meal boxes will include 7 breakfasts, 7 lunches. And these are free for any youth 18 or under. They do not need to be enrolled in Minneapolis public schools. Families can pick up as many food boxes as they have youth in their household. And there's also home delivery available for those food boxes for qualifying families. So please help us spread the word. We want to make sure that youth over the summer are getting good, healthy food to keep them fueled. And I'll just mention too, we'll also be providing daily meals at a variety of parks and libraries across the city as well. So watch for that. But the weekly food boxes will also be available. And from a farm to school perspective, I'll mention that there will be some great fresh local veggies making their way into the food boxes from our partner farms. So, pick up the food boxes and you can follow along with some of our seasonal options as well. And I'll put the link to our summer meal page in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Andrea also dropped in the chat a summary of the mayor's proposal for the American Rescue Plan dollars. We've got food for the kids. We've got American Rescue Plan dollars. Are there any other announcements that folks want to share? Andrea also shared a specific link for the food security proposals. So for those who have access, hold on to that link. And for those who don't, if it's still relevant, we'll be sharing it in the meeting minutes. Awesome. Awesome. So with that, we've completed all the agenda items for today. Thank you everybody for being here, for joining us tonight, and for being a part of the conversation. Before I close, I do see one last hand came in. Is that Andrea?
It is. I just wanted to offer that if you Google City of Minneapolis ARP, you will be able to, it's the first thing that comes up is the American Rescue Plan proposal. So if you don't have access to the chat and want to see it, it should be easily Googleable.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. So with that, if you have trouble accessing anything, you can always reach us at homegrown@minneapolismn.gov. There were no last announcements that folks wanted to share. Any other matters people want to bring before we adjourn? Cool. So with that, without objection, I declare this meeting adjourned. And our next Food Council meeting will be on July the 14th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. I'll see you all there. Bye now.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kim.
Hi, everybody.
Bye-bye.